Preamble to the Interstellar Declaration of Rights. Why does this declaration exist? This declaration has been created with the purpose of invoking a higher jurisdiction capable of protecting the fundamental rights of all sentient beings. It is based on the belief in a shared stellar origin of all consciousness and the need to restore balance in the face of current injustices. In recent years, we have witnessed how legal entities, such as transnational corporations, have seized control of political and economic systems, prioritizing private interests over human rights. These legal tools, initially designed to ensure peace, justice, and order, are now being used to the detriment of those who created them. When facing medical problems, we turn to doctors. When facing legal issues, we consult lawyers. However, when we confront political and social problems that affect entire societies, we lack effective mechanisms to seek help. It is reasonable to assume that advanced stellar races have already faced similar challenges and developed solutions. Just as humans form associations to help others facing specific difficulties, these races likely wish to assist those of us suffering the traumas of an unsustainable system. Some clear examples of these challenges include perpetual wars. Despite technological and scientific advances, wars continue to devastate communities and destroy resources that could be used for the common good. Corporate interests in health. Private corporations block access to guaranteed cures for serious diseases, prioritizing profits over human life. Obsolete debt system. The current debt system condemns human beings to work endlessly to pay imposed obligations, perpetuating a cycle of financial enslavement. Climate control. Climate manipulation has become a tool of power, damaging ecosystems and threatening global food security. Monopoly on seeds and medicine. Corporations have privatized seeds and medical procedures, limiting access to basic food and essential treatments, endangering the survival of millions. These factors have led us, as a species, to be perceived as a hostile, invasive, and regressive race, when in reality it has all been the result of mental programming imposed by external control systems. Based on this premise, this declaration seeks to establish a legal pathway for the intervention of sworn protectors. These beings, committed to universal justice, could act as mediators to restore balance. We recognize that the first step toward transformation depends on us. If we do not express our desire to receive help, no one will come to give it to us. Therefore, this declaration does not claim to be exhaustive or perfect, it simply aims to lay the first stone in requesting stellar assistance. If you agree with this manifesto, publicly declare I consent or I am part of this declaration. In this way, if these protectors exist, they will see that there are enough conscious beings with legal capacity to demand an intervention in favor of justice, peace, proper education, and truthful science. Thank you for your attention and collaboration in this collective effort. Interstellar and Multidimensional Manifesto on Fundamental Rights. We, who affirm our inherent right to exist, to express ourselves, and to experience freely, declare the following in this binding contract. This manifesto is addressed to all forms of conscious life, regardless of species, race, planet, or dimension of existence, as well as to all organizations, collectives, and systems of government acting on behalf of these forms of life. 1. Common origin and inalienable rights. All beings originate from a common universal source, beyond names, interpretations, or specific beliefs. This connection grants us fundamental and inalienable rights, which are detailed below. 2. Expanded fundamental rights. All beings have the right to the following fundamental and inalienable principles, granted by their connection to the universal source and their conscious existence. 2.1 Right to life. Every form of conscious life has the inherent right to exist, to manifest, and to evolve without undue interference. Life is a universal gift and cannot be hindered, manipulated, or extinguished without ethical justification and consensus. This right includes protection against any action that endangers the physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual integrity of a conscious being. 2.2 Right to integral health. Every conscious being has the right to enjoy integral health, understood as the balance of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. This health must be sustainable and accessible to all, without discrimination. Each being has the right to freely choose the practices, treatments, and forms of care they consider most appropriate for their well-being, provided they do not violate the rights of other beings. The resources necessary to maintain health, such as food, medicine, and healing technologies, must be accessible and equitable, provided by the universal source in its natural state or developed ethically. 2.3 Right to freedom. Every conscious being has the right to live in freedom, free from oppression, control, or external coercion. This includes freedom of thought, expression, movement, and choice. Individual freedom is limited only by respect for the same rights of other beings. 2.4 Right to peace. Every conscious being has the right to live in an environment of peace, free from conflicts, aggression, or threats that disturb their balance and development. This right includes protection against war, violence, and any form of domination or exploitation. 2.5 Right to true knowledge. Every conscious being has the right to access true knowledge, as it is and not as it is manipulated or distorted. This right includes the ability to discern, question, and seek the truth without restrictions. Knowledge must be shared fairly and equitably, promoting conscious growth and the expansion of universal wisdom. 2.6 Right to natural resources. Natural resources, such as water, air, land, energy, and food, are universal heritage and belong equally to all forms of life. No entity can claim exclusive ownership over them. The use of these resources must be sustainable, equitable, and respectful of universal balance, ensuring their availability for future generations. 2.7 Right to a place to live. Every conscious being has the right to a safe and adequate place to live, evolve, and experience their existence. This place may be a natural environment or a communal creation, provided it respects the balance of the ecosystem and the rights of other beings. 2.8 Right to creation and property. Creations generated by individuals or collectives, whether material, intellectual, or energetic, are the exclusive property of their creators as long as they do not interfere with the rights of other beings. However, these creations must respect universal balance and cannot claim ownership over natural resources or alter their availability for others. 2.9 Right to free political organization. Every conscious being has the right to organize politically according to their interests and affinities, without being tied to their place of birth or artificial documents such as birth certificates. Political communities must be based on shared interests and operate under the principles of equity, freedom, and mutual respect, free from all coercion or external imposition. 2.10 Right to education and conscious development. Every conscious being has the right to receive education and access to tools that promote their personal and collective development. This education must be inclusive, ethical, and oriented toward the expansion of consciousness. Learning must be a free and voluntary process, never imposed or used as a tool of control. 2.11 Right to identity and self-determination. Every conscious being has the right to define and express their own identity, including their purpose, roles, and connections with other beings or dimensions. This right includes self-determination over one's own body, mind, and spirit, as well as the ability to choose how to interact with the environment and other forms of life. 2.12 Right to universal justice. Every conscious being has the right to be treated with equity and justice, without discrimination based on species, race, gender, dimension, or origin. Actions that violate fundamental rights will be corrected according to the universal laws of cause and effect, ensuring that justice is restorative and not punitive. 2.13 Right to conscious evolution. Every conscious being has the right to experience their personal and collective evolution, free from unnecessary trauma or imposed agendas. Constructive difficulty may be part of this evolution, but never destructive trauma, as it inhibits conscious growth and perpetuates imbalance. 2.14 Right to universal protection. Every conscious being has the right to be protected by universal laws and the sworn protectors, who ensure compliance with this contract and defend fundamental rights. This right includes assistance and support in cases of violations or threats to the integrity of a conscious being. 2.15 Right to ethical technological innovation. Every conscious being has the right to benefit from technologies developed ethically and sustainably, provided they do not compromise universal balance or harm other forms of life. 2.16 Right to respect for diversity. All forms of conscious life have the right to be recognized and respected in their diversity, without attempts at homogenization or forced assimilation. 2.17 Right to reconnection with the source. Every conscious being has the right to return, connect, or reconnect with the universal source, reclaiming their origin and fundamental purpose. 3. Recipients of the contract. This manifesto-contract is explicitly addressed to individual or collective forms of life, whether acting independently or under the support of a collective. Organizations and systems of government, including, but not limited to, local, regional, global, and/or universal governments, federations, confederations, or unions established across one or multiple planets or their artificial counterparts, such as biospheres or motherships. Communities organized under any denomination, e.g., unions of worlds or unions of universes. Entities that self-identify as representatives or members of power systems. Public or secret groups, those operating openly or covertly, whether with full, partial, or programmed knowledge. Henceforth, these entities will be referred to as the invaders when their actions violate the principles established herein. 4. Relationships between conscious beings and legal entities. We recognize that legal entities, such as governments, corporations, or legal systems, are creations derived from human consciousness and other forms of conscious life. These entities have no inherent existence or rights, as they are merely instruments designed to serve conscious beings. However, in many cases, these entities have acquired disproportionate power, subjugating those who created them. Therefore, we declare that no legal entity can exercise authority over a conscious being without their free and explicit consent. Any relationship between a legal entity and a conscious being must be based on a voluntary, renewable, and revocable contract at any time by the conscious party. Lack of consent or coercion in such relationships will be considered a violation of this universal contract and will be sanctioned according to the universal laws of cause and effect. This principle restores natural balance and ensures that creations never surpass their creators. 5. Collective responsibility and consequences. Any action involving invasion, control, manipulation, aggression, forced direction, or projection of harmful agendas will be considered a violation of this contract. Such acts, carried out by individuals or collectives, i.e., the invaders, will automatically trigger the consequences established by the universal law of cause and effect. These consequences include the law of cause, effect, and reciprocity. Every harmful action will return to its origin with the same or greater intensity when correction is required. Complete extinction. Those who persist in their actions will face the total disintegration of their identity, individually or collectively, and their return to the universal source without form or name. Disintegration of resources. Any resource, technology, or system used to perpetrate such actions will also be disintegrated. 6. Repentance and correction. We recognize that repentance and correction are valid paths to rectify mistakes. Any invader who demonstrates genuine change of intention and compensates for the damages caused will be exempt from liability under this contract. However, a lack of corrective action will be interpreted as voluntary acceptance of the consequences established herein. 7. Call to the Universal Protectors. This contract not only establishes rights and responsibilities but also constitutes a call to action directed to all entities sworn under universal laws and committed to the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms. These entities, known as Universal Protectors, have the sacred duty to monitor compliance with this contract, act as guardians of the integrity of the principles declared herein, intervene against violations, exercise their authority to stop, correct, or neutralize any harmful actions carried out by the invaders, support the affected, provide assistance and resources to those who have been victims of violations of this contract, ensuring their restoration and reintegration into universal balance, promote universal consciousness, educate and disseminate the principles of this manifesto among all forms of conscious life, fostering peaceful and respectful coexistence. The Universal Protectors are bound by their oath to act in defense of truth, justice, and equity, guaranteeing that this contract is respected in all times and dimensions. Their intervention will be considered a legitimate and binding act under universal laws. 8. Principle of constructive difficulty versus trauma. We recognize that many beings have incarnated in places like Earth with the intention of experiencing difficulties that promote the expansion of consciousness. However, we clarify that there is a crucial distinction between constructive difficulty and destructive trauma. While the former fosters conscious growth, the latter generates unnecessary suffering and blocks spiritual evolution. Therefore, any prior contract that justifies traumatic experiences as part of this mission will be considered null and void, as it violates the universal principle of equity and respect for the integrity of consciousness. 9. Final declaration. This contract is not a warning nor a mere statement of intent. It is a binding agreement that protects the fundamental rights of all conscious beings. Its validity is eternal and applies in all times and dimensions. The language used is any language in which it is written and capable of conveying its fundamental and universal ideas, and therefore binding. 10. Seal and validation. This contract comes into effect from the moment of its declaration and is sealed by the consciousness of all those who can know, including supreme and universal consciousness, the higher laws of existence, the witnesses of the universal source and their sworn representatives. It is hereby made known that this contract is valid for all conscious entities, whether aware of it or not. Those who ignore its content will be equally responsible under the universal law by which it has been drafted. To whom it may concern, it is hereby notified that this contract is being enforced today, in the place known by many of its inhabitants as Earth, and through its social media, known and audited by multiple races and beings. It remains the responsibility of each entity to ensure its compliance and